Here in Japan, there's a big problem with food spoilage because standards are very high. If it doesn't look perfect, it's very hard to meet consumer demand. With better inventory management, with better algorithms that can manage pricing markdown and solve problems like this, we can reduce that food spoilage.
Hello and welcome to Startup Passport by Econsulate in collaboration with Takeoff Tokyo. Today, we're joined by founder and CEO of Kimaru, Evan Burkosky. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks very much for the invitation. It's always nice to be able to talk about what we're working on.
So could you share with us a little bit more about yourself and Kimaru?
Sure. So at Kimaru, we're trying to solve the problem that a lot of people in retail, supply chain, and logistics face, which is too much data in fragmented data streams. And it requires people to have to try and stitch it all together in spreadsheets in order to do basic decision making. And supply chain is constantly disrupted by things like tariffs or changing weather patterns or big ships getting stuck in the Suez Canal. And it's just too much for people to manage through these kind of old-fashioned manual processes. So we build decision intelligence agents that help to solve that problem and then assist with decision making.
Okay, I'd love to get a case study or a real-world scenario of maybe how Kimaru helps maybe one of your clients or an organization with their decision-making.
Yeah, so it's actually common across a really wide range of industries. And this is quite surprising. You know, when I usually talk to people about this, I guess we don't really think so much about how we get the, food and clothing and the goods that we use day to day. But, it basically all comes via the global supply chain, which is extremely complex. There's a lot of different moving pieces, right? There's the raw materials that you have to get to a factory in order to make things. And then once you've made the thing, you have to actually get it to market, and that involves shipping and trucking and sometimes, last kind of mile motorcycles or bicycles or delivery people, whatever it is, getting it into things like vending machines or onto the shelf for your retail clients or into the supermarket or into the convenience store. So, a real solid use case that we're working on solving right now is food and beverage items that have a short shelf life. Right? So when you've got items that can only stay on the shelf for a limited period of time, it's really important to manage that inventory precisely so you're not spending a lot of money on your warehouse costs, you're not having a lot of product spoil and then have to throw it away, and you're able to be more overall time efficient so that you can reduce a lot of the costs in the overall supply chain.
The byproduct / benefit is also the sustainability aspect, which is, well, with efficiencies, you're getting less wastage. Have you done any research or looked into how Kimaru helps with, for example, a couple logistics companies that I know of are looking into their carbon footprint, and efficiency is pretty much the only way to improve that. Could you share about anything in relation to Kimaru?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big part of the reason why we're focusing on that narrative right now, that particular use case of trying to reduce food spoilage, because it connects to SDG initiatives. I believe it's SDG number 10, if I remember correctly. But maybe we'll have to fact check on that one. Anyway, the goal is to try to reduce food wastage. And it's also not just food, but fast-moving consumer goods and even the fashion industry. There are millions of tons of fabric wastage that go into landfills every year. So we're looking to try to reduce that. Here in Japan, there's a big problem with food spoilage because standards are very high. If food doesn't look perfect, even if it's something relatively, let's say, benign or simple like an apple, if it doesn't look perfect, it's very hard to meet consumer demand. Let's say the standards are very high. And there aren't a lot of good programs for recycling food products like that, so there is a lot of food spoilage. With better inventory management, with better, let's say, algorithms that can manage pricing markdown and solve problems like this, we can reduce that food spoilage. So that's a narrative that a lot of people can understand fairly well. So it's one of the things that we usually start telling our story with.
Awesome. I just want to get into maybe the experience. So if I'm a supply chain manager for, let's take maybe a subsidiary of Suntory or something like that, how would I be interacting with Kimaru? Would I be getting updates in my email about different things? Is it something that lives on my spreadsheet? Could you explain how I would react or interact with Kimaru?
Yes. Well, yes to both of those, really. So what Kimaru does is enhance existing systems. We're not looking to replace any systems, but rather connect all of them together like the central nervous system. So traditionally, it's been very difficult to connect all the disparate data sources that you get, whether it's coming off of the factory floor or whether it's a data stream that comes from maybe a shipping partner, even external sources like weather or traffic information. Now, because of AI agents, we're able to very carefully train agents to do one task and then have a multi-agent system that connects all of that data together, cleans and processes it, and then that rolls up to an orchestration layer. And this is very critical. In our system, the orchestration layer is a super agent that works together with the human user in a human-in-the-loop feedback loop. So the AI is multiple different types of AI. We have the underlying agentic AI that's connecting and cleaning the data, and then that's rolling up to AI that engages in prescriptive analytics, making recommendations about what actions are most effective through a methodology called decision intelligence. And then the AI essentially surfaces recommendations, and the human user looks at that in a visual interface, so logs into a dashboard, looks at that in a visual interface and says, yeah, it looks good, or I'm going to defer that until later, put it into a work list, or I'm going to override this with my own metrics. And the overriding of their own metrics creates a feedback loop for the AI. So yes, they get alerts in their email or by SMS or by Slack about recommendations, and then they log into a dashboard and they can take action on those recommendations. And then that pushes down to an action layer where it connects with ERP or RPA or warehouse management software, whatever tools they're currently using. So pull the data out, make recommendations, human checks them, pushes that down into the action layer so they can take action on them.
Yeah, and the whole point is this lives on top of the existing system. So, you're not reinventing the wheel. And as you said, as complex as the global supply chain is, it's hard to get adoption if you're asking someone to switch out a hammer with a spanner or something like that.
Yeah, precisely. We've talked to hundreds of people in retail, supply chain, logistics, and they've all said the same thing. Basically, what they want is to spend a little bit less time in spreadsheets. Our closest direct competitor really is pivot tables. So people right now have to spend a huge amount of time manually connecting all of this data together in order to model out decisions. Our end users, our operations managers, supply chain managers, pricing managers, sales managers, who are doing all of this in huge, massive spreadsheets right now, and it's extremely time consuming. So we interact with those environments. A lot of our users will take the recommendations that we make and then actually push them down into their legacy spreadsheets because that's the environment they're used to working in. But if they have something like an ERP system, SAP or Oracle or let's say Blue Yonder or Kinaxis, something like that, we can connect with those systems as well. So it's about meeting the user where they are in their current workflow and then enhancing that with this decision augmentation. And that's a really key point as well. It's decision augmentation, not automation, right? We don't want to give the robots the keys to everything.
Well, thank you so much for sharing some insight into the world of logistics and supply chain. It really is kind of the invisible hand that allows us to have our onigiri in the convenience store, your bottle of water at your supermarket. And I do hope all the best for you and Kimaru. And thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you.